final award of the evening, the Edward Stanford Award for Outstanding Contribution to Travel Writing. It aims to honour a renowned travel writer who has produced a substantial body of work over a long and distinguished career. Previous recipients are Bill Bryson, Michael Palin, Jan Morris, Colin Thubron, Paul Theroux, Dervla Murphy, Hilary Bratt, and Tony Wheeler. And now I'm delighted to welcome one of those previous recipients, the award-winning author Colin Thubron, who is going to present the award. Colin, I'm delighted to announce that the award goes to Nicholas Crane.
Well, the words epithet national treasure is rather too much bandied about, but I think in Nick Crane's case it's entirely suitable. I think it was The Guardian that described him as one of the world's most incandescent enthusiasts. And that seems to perfectly personify him. Many of you, of course, will know of him through his BBC television programmes, such as Coast and Town and Great British Journeys, and so on. There are more than 80 of them, astonishingly. But this evening, of course, we're celebrating his written works. He started bicycling quite manically in the 1980s. I remember when I was ages ago in the southern part of Siberia on the headwaters of the Yenisei, I came across a rather shabby obelisk which said it was the centre of Asia, or the centre of the known world, virtually. It was put up by some eccentric British guy called Proctor. It was only later that I realised that actually the centre of the world, in other words, the furthest from any known sea area, had been identified by Nicholas Crane, who bicycled there. He had started in Bangladesh, gone over the Himalaya, into, I think, across Tibet, and identified it with far more scientific accuracy than poor Mr. Proctor had done somewhere in the Gobi Desert. Anyway, Nick eventually, of course, didn't abandon the bicycle, but he preferred to walk on foot. And those wonderful books are almost all great feats of pedestrian travel. In the lovely title, Clear Waters Rising, he journeyed in an enormous trajectory, I think almost 8,000 miles, along the Pyrenees, across the Alps, to the Black Sea. And this was typically, I think, for Nick, a journey of following a sort of geographic trajectory, just as it identified the heart of Asia, or the heart of the terrestrial world. So he seems to love to follow meridians, or various kinds of identify lines along the globe that intrigue him, which is true of his next book, which was 2 Degrees West, which was a journey through Britain, which is a very dangerous thing to do, in my view, to write about your own country. It's always the most challenging thing. But he did, and he did it with typical self-deprecation, carrying his signature rolled up umbrella, moving on this severe meridian, the prime meridian of Britain, south to north, I think, and meeting people by chance along the way, just whoever happened to be in his line of fire. And it was, in a way, a wonderful study of Englishness, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, modest, self-deprecating, and as always beautifully written. There's a third volume, which I love, of this, you might say, geographic trilogy, which was on the Flemish cartographer Gerard Mercator, who lived in the 16th century in an extraordinary turbulent world and produced the maps that we all know as Mercator's projection. This was a book that the Sunday Times said it's the peak of Nick Crane's achievement, with the sort of idea that maybe he can't do anything as good. But he went on to do things as good. And I think it was in 2012, I should get my glasses out and check. because his publisher might be here. Yes, it was 2012, The Making of the British Landscape, a wonderful geographic study of the last 12,000 years of the geological transformation of the British Isles, sometimes with abrupt suddenness, things happening which alert us, of course, to future climate change. And finally, his most recent book in 2021, called Latitude, was again one of those geographic studies that so fascinate him, on an expedition that started out in 1735, went on for 10 years, of a group of European scientists wanting to find the exact, they found the equatorial, if you like, meridian of the globe, so that they could actually map it later. The globe was mapped properly, a highly influential expedition, which, as usual with Nick, was most beautifully written. It's always with his prose, there's a sense of enthusiasm there. We can't fake enthusiasm. You always know when a writer's a little bored by his subject. But that's never the case with Nick. There's always, there's erudition, there's a wonderful kind of modesty. That character we all know in our work, which is the first person I, you can't escape betraying yourself somehow. The author is always known to the reader somehow, however much he tries to absent himself. And with Nick, the character is, as I say, scholarly, he's charming and accessible and marvellously modest. Well, it would be tedious, I think, to go on about all the honours that Nick has won, and sufficient to say that he was president of the Royal Geographical Society from 2015 to 2018. He won their prestigious Ness Award and the Mungo Park Medal. And now, with at least as much heartwarming enthusiasm, we give him the Stanford Award for the best.
I'm not usually speechless, but I'm afraid I am, and I feel rather weak at the knees. Colin, I feel rather overwhelmed by your kind words. Thank you very much, but I've often thought this bit, we live and learn as writers with other writers in our sights, and Colin has always been up there ahead of me, most recently trekking along the Amur River, and a book that I made last an entire winter, which I didn't want it to finish, magnificent book. While I'm here in this very unfamiliar place, I'm going to take the opportunity to say thank you to Vivien Godfrey, without whom this extraordinary centre of geographical retailing wouldn't exist. Vivien has saved Stanfords effectively and made it what it is. It's the place that nearly all of my journeys have always started, buying a map, and then coming back many years later, hopefully, with a published book. Thank you all very much indeed, especially to, I learned an acronym this morning from one of our children, SO, Significant Other. And you're all significant others as readers, and as book buyers, but there is Annabelle, my other half, my most significant other, who has been with me through many of these journeys, and Jim Gill, my agent at United Agents, and my wonderful 3 children who have been with me on some of the journeys that turned into writing events. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Colin. I'm deeply honoured. This is a huge moment for a writer who spends most of his time entirely alone, daydreaming. He's not used to stepping out in front of the light, so thank you very much.